Okay, I'm starting to record now, but we're not live yet. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go off camera. Um, you all can stay on camera if you would mute yourselves for the next few minutes. Yeah. Oh, hey, John. Yeah, if you could all mute yourselves for the next 5 minutes. I'm gonna start the process to go live on Facebook, and we'll just have the title screen that you'll see in just a moment display. And Tereya, feel free to jump in anytime you want to make an announcement saying it'll start in 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
So, Carlos, should I go on and make my announcement like about a minute before or?
Yeah, if you could do 2 minutes before, just to say
Okay.
we'll start in 2 minutes.
Do I need to let you know that I'm about to make the announcement?
No, just go ahead and unmute yourself and do it.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so first title slide. So I'll send a message in the chat box when we're live on Facebook, just so that everybody knows.
Thank you all for joining us this morning. We will begin shortly, ensuring other members have logged in to participate today. Thank you for joining GSBA's Health and Wellness web series, Keeping It Real with host Lindsay T.H. Jackson. GSBA is Washington State's LGBTQ and Allied Chamber of Commerce and the largest LGBTQ chamber in North America, representing over 1,400 small businesses, corporate, and nonprofit members who share the values of promoting equality and diversity in the workplace. GSBA's Health and Wellness web series, Keeping It Real, will help individual leaders and organizations speak up, speak out, and move closer to reaching their full potential. At the conclusion of today's Keeping It Real, GSBA asks you to take a moment to reply to our survey presented on the Zoom platform. This will help ensure future optimal programming. Today's episode is, are you taking advantage of other people's fear? Now over to you, Lindsay.
In Stephanie Moulton Sarkis's book, Gaslighting, she paints a grim picture of the manipulative and abusive power of gaslighters. She details several stories. One, for example, is about the Venezuelan dictator, Nicolas Maduro, who in a now infamous press conference in November 2017, sat in front of millions of his starving populace and consumed an empanada. What strikes me, though, in Stephanie Sarkis's book is one moment where she refers to some jobs, which it's natural for them to gaslight, to take advantage of people. Can you guess what job that was? It was sales. Ms. Sarkis implies that sales is by nature a manipulative process, a manipulative role. Why is that? Right now, 300,000 small businesses in Washington are trying to figure out how they are going to make their way through this time. And to do that, they are going to have to sell their product. But is there a way to do that that doesn't take advantage of everything that millions of us are experiencing right now? The fear, the uncertainty around job, around place. How is it that we can sell ethically? Welcome to Keeping It Real with the GSBA and Lindsay T.H. Jackson. Today, we're going to delve into the ethics of sales, and specifically the ethics of selling during COVID-19. Let's welcome our expert panel and a guest from our community. Joining me on the virtual couch, I have Joanne Jaspin and Priyanka Raha of Sales and Shift Strategy. And we also have Jennifer Shafley of Heritage Distilling Company. Welcome to all.
Thank you.
Jennifer, can you speak to us about the first moments when Heritage Distilling Company here in the Pacific Northwest was noticing that there was going to be a much longer response to the pandemic than perhaps we expected? I mean, I can still think of reasons why I might want a beer a couple times a day, but what was going on in your minds as you started to look out at the landscape?
A lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty. You know, I've been essential from day one of this, so I can't relate it all to the folks who are working from home and staying from home. So there's a lot of fear going and facing the public every day, and being in a managerial role, making sure that your staff is safe, making sure that your guests are safe. And we were very fortunate. We pivoted very early on in March and switched our entire production from spirits to hand sanitizer. And not only to save our company, but to do what we could for the community. So as things have continued to go on, as we are seeing states open up and not have good results, we have done everything we can as far as securing extra materials, making sure we have the production capacity to keep going with sanitizer as long as the community needs us to. So I had to reduce about 70% of my workforce in my Ballard and Capitol Hill locations. As a company, we had just taken our brown sugar bourbon national last year. So we had just experienced all this amazing growth and pretty much had to shut it all down. So it's a very scary time, both personally and professionally. And I worry about my children. I have a daughter who was immediately sent home from Western Washington, and I have another immune compromised special needs daughter at home. So it's terrifying to go out every day. But Heritage is ensured that I have what I need as far as PPE, and the staff has what we need, and we have all the social distancing practices in place. So now we're just starting to think about how can we make sure we have enough product for everyone who needs it, and starting to think about what does reopening look like for us in the future.
Wow, so that's really, thank you for sharing that, because it really illustrates the multi-layers of fear that we can be experiencing, both for our company and for our role at work, but then also, do I make a decision to keep working, to keep selling my product while being concerned about my own family? How have you navigated all of those emotions? I can only imagine.
The first couple of weeks, especially early in March, were very difficult. Having to have those conversations with so many of my team members that we're letting you go. We don't know when things will be different. Really great, hardworking people.
Yes.
And also there were several weeks where there weren't days off. You know, we managers and a couple of people that were left in the kind of corporate setting worked every day for several weeks. And it definitely got to a point where there were days you sat in your car in the driveway and cried a little bit before you went in the house, because you didn't know, am I taking this inside to my family?
Yes.
Am I taking this to my staff? So there was so much fear and uncertainty and worry at first. It has slowly shifted into this amazing sense of pride and feeling really great about what we've been able to do for the community. We've been able to, since launching it, we've put our product in Costco and the entire West Coast. So
Congrats.
we're making sure that this product is getting into the hands of the people who need it. We're pumping out as much as we can. We're keeping it at a cost that's effective. We have donated tons of product to local first responders and hospitals. So my fear has kind of moved into this just pride that I am making a difference. My company is making a difference. My staff is making a difference. And we can all feel really good about what we're doing every day. It's still very scary, but we're doing what we need to do to be safe. So there's still that fear and uncertainty. We also, as a company, we had a huge legislative victory earlier this year. Tasting rooms in Washington, if you sold spirits, you only could serve 2 ounces at a time. Not true of wineries and breweries. So we have been trying to get legislation passed for a couple of years to have that ounce limit lifted, and we finally got it passed this year. And of course, this happens. So not only are we looking to how are we going to reopen safely, but how are we going to reopen with a completely different business model? So there isn't a whole lot of time for the fear right now. There's buckling down and figuring out how we're going to do this and how we're going to make this happen.
Wow. Wow. Well, I mean, amongst everything that I just heard I can't wait to go to a tasting room, apparently. And
Yes.
I'll be toasting you, Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer, for this little nip here. Joanne and Priyanka, what are you hearing that Jennifer's doing right?
Oh, that's a great question. And if I can just latch onto and take Jennifer's business as an example, right? I think selling ethically is something that we need to do all the time. Yes, more so right now, but selling ethically is what makes your business stay or nay. And what a great example of, like, I'm sure it's a distillery. Yes, it is a company that is selling spirits. But what Jennifer and her team and everybody in the C-suite, what they did was they went back and looked at how they can add value to the people. So I think that is the core of selling. Like, how can I meet the needs of what people are looking for right now? And once we figure that out, we can, Joanna and I, we can dive into the details of, there is a whole big process of how you figure that out. But I think the core of that is, what can we do right now to add value to the customers? It might be slightly different from what I thought worked 5 weeks ago or 6 months ago, but that may not be now, but I can still add value. So once I change the mind shift to how I can meet the needs of my customer, I think that changes the whole thought process around selling and makes it ethical, no matter what the situation is, no matter what the environment is throwing at us.
But what do I do when I realize that my product right now just has no space? Nobody wants it right now in this moment. What do I do?
That's a great question. Joe, do you want to?
I'm going to challenge that, Lindsay. How do you know nobody wants your product? I mean, that's assumptions are not our friends in sales. So there's a whole lot of different kinds of people out there. I don't know. This is a tough situation to have when we're blanketing like sales, because we have business to business sales, we have business to consumer sales, we have sales that are conducted, in person in a store, we have distribution centers, we have business salespeople doing, what they would have been doing, but doing it through Zoom. So there's a lot of different configurations, and of course, all kinds of products and services. So it's hard to make one sweeping generalization, but I think it's really important to remember that maybe you've done some product market fit and you think you know who your audience is or your target market, but to say like, no, I mean, unless you're selling something right now that's like used for people to rub up against each other or like swap spit or something, I'm pretty sure someone out there, so I think what it's more a matter of is it's a mindset shift. You might have to clarify your question a little bit, but I think it's probably untrue that nobody out there's no need for what you have to offer.
And that's beautiful. So can you walk me through, if I'm the business owner sitting at home right now watching, thinking nobody wants my product, I'm done. How would I begin shifting myself out of that thinking? What would be the first steps that I would take to begin pivoting the way Jennifer has?
I can take that, and Joanne, you can add to it later. So I want to speak to it with a particular example, right? So there are two things there. It's not true that the customers do not need my product at all. So there is that sales cycle, right? So it is possible that if I were taking that product to the customer in December 2019, the same product, they would have been, yeah, great, let's get on it in 2 weeks. So that turnaround time may not look like 2 weeks right now, but they still need it. So I think this is also the time to stay focused on finding out who your customers are and reaching out to them in the sense of adding value, or in the sense of making that relationship. To say, like, is this something that they would be needing in the month of July, August? I'm just throwing some examples. So a particular product I do want to speak to now, a lot of you don't know, I have a second business where it's an education product. So it's an education product, and we launched right in the middle of pandemic. It's just how technically it worked.
Kids, right, Priyanka? Pop Smart Kids?
Yes, it's Pop Smart Kids, and our storytelling app was launched right in the middle of the pandemic, and it was meant for classrooms, meant for teachers to use in the classrooms. Now, these are teachers that I had spoken to earlier in the year when everything looked very different from what it is now. So when it launched, they were not ready to buy that product. They still liked that product. They were not ready to buy that product because this was not the time to onboard something new into their whole gamut of products they're already using. But these are the same customers who have reached out to me, and I have had only 30% success of the teachers coming on board. Now I'm using this example to really focus on the question you asked, is that, are these my customers? These are still my customers. These are still my customers, but what changed for me was that these customers are not going to turn around and buy my product immediately, like in 2 or 3 weeks time, or maybe 2 months time. But this is also the time when I am building relationship with them, asking them how I can add value. What is it they need? So this time is the time to pivot, to not a sharp pivot, but an organic pivot where the product can actually meet the customer where they are. That may not be next week, that may not be even next month, but definitely 2 months from now. The other thing I started by talking about 2 things, right? So the other thing is, sometimes it is possible that moments like this kind of really challenge us to think about what more can we do with this product. And this is true with the example that I am using right now with the educational product. It's true with what Jennifer was talking about with her product, right? You have all of the back-end systems in place. You have everything in place. You just need to change some of the things in the front. It's not a sharp pivot again, but you can change it in a way that the product that comes out may not meet the need that people had 2 months ago, but may meet the need right now. Like she didn't change the whole, like her company didn't change the whole thing and started making masks, because that's not how it was suited. But her company, everything in the back end was perfectly well put together for making something like sanitizers, and that's what they did. So just using another example, so what we did in my other company is that we used the same product to say how we can turn this around and add value to the thousands of children in the elementary schools who are now at home and parents are working, so there are challenges. How can we keep them meaningfully engaged? So we started something called storytelling workshops, but kind of bringing it around to answer your question, Lindsay. It's again 2 things, if I can summarize. It's your customers may not have changed. It's just that they are unable to respond to what you're providing right now. So that cycle of turnaround time may be longer than you had expected. And also you may not need to probably pivot the whole thing to, take Joe's example is like something where you are rubbing against each other, or, like bizarre examples, but it's possible that you can already use the systems and the products on the back end in place to change or make smaller pivots in the front to meet the needs of the customer.
Great. So what I hear you saying are 2 things. And if you're listening at home, this is a really great time to grab out your notepad and write a note to yourself. 1, you're thinking about what does my customer potentially need right now, and looking to see, is there a way that I might be able to meet those needs right now? And 2, looking at what systems do I already have in place that might allow me to continue to keep my business operational and allow a little bit of a pivot of maybe an existing product or process to meet the needs of this moment. Does that sound right?
I'd like to piggyback on that. I think I imagine for a lot of your listeners and GSBA members, they may have a company, a product, a service, a business where a pivot of what they actually produce or offer isn't feasible or viable or even necessary. So I think that's definitely one avenue. I'd like to kind of invite us to consider the other or another scenario, which is you're not going to change what it, you know, if you're a restaurant, you're not going to refashion that into something completely different. I think I would invite us to think about pivoting more around, there will be instances where, Jennifer, what you guys did at Heritage is brilliant. It's such a quintessential example of a great pivot with the ingredients and the equipment, you know, that you already had. But I think for a lot of us, it's not going to be that extreme. And I think what the best way that I think about this is changing the messaging, changing how we're speaking to our customers or our potential customers. I think your intro to this session, Lindsay, talking about gaslighting and manipulation is very, very, you know, that is the root of sales when we think of like the snake oil salesperson or salesman, or of course, like the used car, you know, sales. But I'm here to tell you, I absolutely adore sales. I practice it. Like, to me, talking about ethics in sales is sort of a not necessary, like, of course it's ethical. And I think when we feel pressured because our businesses are maybe not doing as well, people tend to want to sell from this place of like panic or desperation or, oh my God, if I don't get this amount of revenue in this month kind of thing. And that's going to backfire every time. And it's because you're putting your needs sort of, you're doing a seller-centric model. And, you know, I think we can just all agree that you're in business because you're there to make money, you know, most likely. So that's a given, you know, that you have needs. Of course, you've got families. But I think, you know, when we do things, when we come up with like little gimmicks and stuff to pressure people to buy, that's when we fall into that ethical discussion. I think the best way that people can sell is to really stop selling. To me, sales is not about selling. It's not about trying to get people to part with their resources, their money. I think it's much more about being a guide or a navigator to help this customer make the right choices for them, to help them solve a challenge, to help them scratch an itch. And I think if we think about that more, like we're just guiding them on this, you know, they're here, they need to get here, whatever that might look like, we're guiding them across that bridge.
I'm going to stop for a second because, you know, everybody that's listening right now, have you ever heard that before? Raise your hand if you've heard that before. The idea of sales being a guide, to stop selling and to instead think of yourself as a guide. I just think that that is, you know, the idea that we're going to be able to take away from today. You know, keep going, but I just wanted to.
Yeah, no, it's, I'm glad you pulled that out. You know, I think we've all heard of the term like servant leadership, the idea that, you know, a leader in an organization is there to serve their staff, their employees. I call it servant saleship because really, you know, sales was born out of this, our customer, this idea that like our customer is the John or the Mark and like we're going to pull one over on them and sleight of hand and they don't know any better. And I think it's critical for people today in business to really realize our audience is incredibly savvy. And when you try to tell them like, oh, I've got a special deal if you can sign up in the next hour only, like, does that work on you? You know, probably not. Me, it just pisses me off. And, you know, I think it's incredibly inauthentic. And I think if you think that that's effective, you're not giving your audience enough credit. So like to Priyanka's point, instead realize that we're in this situation where if you're used to a sales cycle being 6 weeks or a week, or they can walk into your store and buy something right away, you need to adjust that expectation, you know, understand that your sales cycle will be longer. And instead of trying to come up with ways to manipulate them, or, you know, to say like, well, if you can do this now, I can throw this in. Instead, talk to them. Like, I think one of the most important things we can bring to sales is a sense of curiosity, rather than assumption, like we know, you know. And when I say curiosity, you know, I don't know how many of you out there have or have had or have spent significant time around toddlers, but you know, that why thing, like, why is the sky blue? It reflects the water. Why is, you know, why? Well, because the earth is round. Why? Well, because I'm not a flat earther. Why? You know, whatever the thing is, but the why. And I think showing up with that level of curiosity. So, you know, if you're in a conversation with a potential buyer or customer and they're hesitant, like, ask them why. You know, don't try to come up with like, well, I'm going to pressure you, because, you know, you're guiding them. So it's okay to say, like, is the hesitation, you know, is this a budget issue? If it is, what would make this comfortable for you? Is this something that, you know, would it be better? You want to understand, you know, maybe their hesitation isn't about budget, or maybe it's about competing priorities. So I just think it's, yeah.
And right now, in this moment, I mean, I've come to you for coaching before, Joanne and Priyanka, around this. And one of the things that I always remember you saying is never work from a state of desperation. And so right now, what is it like? And maybe Jennifer, you could also weigh in on this, because I think you shared some of that, when both the buyer and the seller may be in a state of desperation, or like we talked about last week, of anxiety. How do we approach it? Or is it that same curiosity that you were speaking about?
Yeah, I don't think you can speak to, and like, I don't think you can assume what your buyer's anxiety is or isn't, or how that manifests. So, you know, I think that's sort of what I was speaking to when I said, like, adjust your expectations or acknowledge your own anxiety. I mean, I think the message here is be human. Pretend that your buyer is like your best college buddy, or your best friend, or someone that you would just talk to, you know, like, really, why is that going on for you? And, you know, what would make that better? Is this something that you just think you want to, you know, and I was going to say, is this something you just need to put a pin in until indefinitely, or is this something we should revisit? You know, ask them those questions that you would if they weren't a customer, but they're a person, you know, they're having the same anxieties. But I think this idea that, you know, we're not gonna kind of let them see any, I think it's okay to say, I'm really anxious in this time too, you know, just being human like that. Yeah.
Jennifer, I see you shaking your head. Can you relate to that saying, I'm feeling really anxious too?
Absolutely. When so many businesses are shut down and yours is still open, I think it's really important to let your customer know that you do share in their anxiety, and you do the things that you have control over, such as social distancing measures, plexis up, your staff in PPE, having masks for customers that come in. I think having those things that you can control taken care of helps with that anxiety. And yes, we sell a smaller product. We sell bottles of alcohol, right? But we think of ourselves as guides and educators. We are not about a hard sell. We are about educating you, finding out why you're in, what you're curious about. We'll help you through that process and educate you about the product. And if you buy from us, fantastic. If not, we'll probably see you again in a few months, because we planted a seed. So it's,
I love that.
Yes, it's absolutely being human and sharing in the anxiety, because we're all there right now. So
Yeah.
Joanne, you've made great points. I agree completely.
And I just wanted to jump in and say, like, the reason for Joanne and I starting Shift Strategy and kind of putting our heads together is we absolutely, and your product is not small. I don't think any product, any business is small, because at this point, and that's why we started, because we do believe that all businesses, all products can add that value, and that value is never small. Because let me remind all of us that bottle of sanitizer, what it can do right now,
That's
a
not.
Prada bag would be like, no, I don't want that. I want that one. Like that's what I'm looking for right now. So, so that's huge. No, I have nothing to add. I think these are such.
No, Priyanka, well, I have a question for you. So you do have something to add. I want to know, what do we say to the business owner right now that can't see the shift in strategy, that right now is really sitting in their own feelings, their own sadness, depression?
Get a
What words of
therapist.
advice do you have? Sorry. go ahead.
Yeah. So, as all business owners or, you know, people who are actually running the businesses, everybody will acknowledge that when we are in the thick of it, we're just, it's almost like a hamster wheel, right? We're just going. And as much as we don't like the situation, and I wish that we weren't thrown into this, absolutely. But I think these are also these extenuating circumstances where we have an opportunity to take a moment to breathe. And what that means is not just about the anxiety, but like completely from a business strategy standpoint, is take a moment to pause and think about why you, and this is where like the toddler, although I must say, like when my toddlers ask me why, I just end with because I said so. So
Why? Why
so,
did you know?
but that may not work for when you're trying to add value or trying to like reach your customers. But
Not Priyanka and Joanne's sales advice right there.
yeah, exactly.
Because
Just making it clear. You don't want to go say, okay, shift
That's
strategy.
next
says,
week's
like,
podcast, Parenting
Yeah.
Talk. You're in the wrong room right
podcast
now.
by shift strategy because I said so.
Jennifer, I want you to try that later
Yeah.
today. I said so.
I'll let you know
So
how it
I want-
goes.
I have toddlers in the house. I'll have a quick turnaround time with the customers. But I really wanted to just focus on that why, you know, the thing that Joanne was talking about before is not just to the customers, but whenever someone starts a business or is in the business, it's not because you started the business to sell this product. The why of your company can never be, oh, I'm starting this because I want to sell this product and I want to buy my next meal. Yes, it is an outcome. We all are running businesses. We all need to feed our kids. We all need, you know, a roof on our head. But there is definitely a why that is slightly bigger than getting your next meal. And so this is that time to think about that why. Why did you start this? And that exercise, I'm not going into that exercise right now, but just like asking those questions. Well, why? Why am I selling this?
For Simon Sinek's book, right? And delve into their why.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation if you want to ever, and if you think a book is, because, you know, we are all hard pressed for time, but his TED Talk about why is just a very good synopsis of how we can arrive at that. And in business strategy, there is another method that we use. It's called the fishbone analysis. So if you think about a fish, it has the central bone, and then it has, I mean, it just seemed apt to bring up a fish analogy because, you know, Pacific Northwest fish.
Right.
So
Very apropos, yes.
She's full of the analogies. I've learned about bees and mosquitoes. I've learned about cows. I've learned about a lot of different little analogies. And I'm like, wait, is this the bee or are we talking about the cow? But yes, yeah.
Bring us, you've got us
Now
on
I
the
learned
fish
about
now.
the fish.
Bring it back. You've got us on the fish now.
yeah, guilty as charged. I love storytelling. But so the fishbone analysis, right? So the fish has like the central bone, and then you have those almost like tributaries like going out. So the problem is always that it's visible to you from the outside, but the root cause is not what that is. So you just kind of start, okay, why happened this? So you just kind of travel, and then you arrive at the central, the root cause analysis, or fishbone analysis is kind of the name of the methodology, but we can use the same thing for arriving at the why. And it takes a little bit of time. It seems like easier to do, but it takes a little bit of time because you have to really go back and think deep and hard about why you started this business. And sometimes that, going through that process helps you to find out like what shift in that strategy will help me kind of either sustain myself and also like make that connection with the customers.
Absolutely. And so what I hear you saying is that if I am sitting at home right now, feeling as though I can't mire my way through my feelings and my anxiety, my feelings of desperation, that I might be able to come back to the why of my business. Why do I love being a business owner and an entrepreneur? And just sit with that for a moment, and then that might help me begin to swim upstream. See what I did there? Stuck with the analogy.
Yeah,
Boom.
exactly.
All right.
Perfect. And that will bring you joy too, because I'm also trying to kind of answer some of the tactical questions or challenges that we're facing now. There is desperation because we are in a desperate situation. I think kind of understanding that. But that why, I mean, just understanding that, not just for the business, even at a personal level, that will bring joy. Because I think there was joy when we all started that business. We just didn't like wake up like, I want to feel miserable, so I'm starting this business. So I don't think anybody ever thought that. So that
If
can
you did,
also help.
please write to us at the Keeping It Real at the GSBA, because we're going to tell that story.
Can I offer a couple sort of specific things I think might be helpful too? Because, you know, I think that anxiety that you're talking about, if you're sitting at home feeling awful, it's almost like that's something, it's difficult for us to say as strategists how to deal with that emotion. You know, everyone is different. I think connecting to the reason, your passion, why you started your business is a great one. But a couple specific things I think are helpful here to maybe help tamper that anxiety. It's kind of like this too shall pass. We don't know what moving forward is going to look like and how things will change, how they will move forward to resemble what we consider normal or not. But none of us know that, and we can't control that. So I think part of what you can do in the short term, and this is something that Jennifer said, and I just want to kind of revisit that because she put it so beautifully and eloquently. It doesn't, when, you know, she said, like, if people come to the store, we're going to talk to them. Why are you here? What are you looking for? We're going to educate them maybe a little bit about the distillery process, or I don't know what. But she said, and it's okay if they don't buy from us. They're going to leave, and we've planted a seed. And that right there is worth its weight in gold. You know, it's not about pressuring them to make the purchase now, whether they walk into a physical store, whether you're selling software over a Zoom meeting. I think the one way that you're really going to differentiate yourself and your business in times like this, when it's even more competitive than our competitive market normally, you're going to differentiate yourself by the interactions that you have with your customers or with your prospects. At the end of the day, we are the part of our brains that engage when we make buying decisions are the same ones that respond to storytelling. It comes from a very emotional part of our brain, even if we're very rational people. And so if you tell people like statistics and you're throwing features at them, and if she's like, you should buy this because we use 100% grain-free, I don't even know, I'm riffing here. I'm not going to remember that when I walk away and then I'm at like the grocery store looking at the liquor and trying to, you know, I'm going to remember a story she told me. I'm going to remember how I felt.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to, you know, 2 months from now or next week or this morning, tomorrow, after this call, when I need a shot, I'm just kidding. But I'm going to think about when that need does arise and it's a genuine need I have, I'm going to remember that. And that will follow through no matter what you're selling. So again, I think the point here, differentiate by your interactions. It's that old adage, give, ask. So if your customers aren't buying right now, that doesn't mean that this is a time to totally go underground and be stagnant. One sec. Thank you. Too much coffee and a little dehydrated. But if they're not buying, this is like very fertile time to start building these relationships that will differentiate you. So, you know, why are you in the store today? You know, when in Jennifer's case, there's another kind of fear that's very different than the financial fear of sales. I mean, she's been talking about it, the physical fear of, are we protected? Are we transmitting anything? You know, I think having those conversations every time I go to a store, I ask the person checking me out, how are you feeling? How's it been? Are people like being nice to you? Are you anxious being here? And like, we chat, and it humanizes them and me. And I think, you know, it's just, I think that it helps my anxiety, just chatting. But that kind of fear aside, I think, you know, if you're not in a physical store, there's so much that you can offer your potential buyers in terms of information, in terms of support. I have one client that called everyone she's ever done business with and just said, hi, how are you? You know, she's been working for herself for probably 15 years. So she has quite an extensive, but it wasn't like, I was wondering if I could help, you know, she does interiors, and she wasn't saying, hi, can I like rearrange your furniture for you or go shop? You know, it was just like, how are you? And
Yeah.
whether or not they're ready to do a project with her now, they're going to remember that, you know? So I think that's really important. That's my one point. The other was the give, ask. Make sure that you're just offering, you know, and ask them, like, if they're like, look, it's really not a good time. Okay, I'd love to stay in touch. You know, would it be all right if I checked in with you? If I see anything that I think might be relevant to your business, your situation, you know, can I share that? I also just wanted to say, and this helps me when I personally get anxious about business, but historically, some of our most innovative, disruptive, groundbreaking companies have come out of like the 2008 Great Recession. I feel like when there is a squeeze, that is when we are pushed to like the boundaries of the space that we fit into. And that's when innovation happens. That's when we break through. If things are like super smooth sailing and there's really kind of no parameters or challenges, just I think instinctually we're not as pushed to, there isn't that, urge is the wrong word. We're not as pushed to break through. It's when we're like, oh my God, this global pandemic is coming, you know, and it's coming from all sides. There's true beauty in that innovation that comes from that place of being squeezed. So
Yeah.
I think, you know, I can't remember specifically, but I think it was Airbnb and Uber and
Yep.
some other really big game changers were all born out of the 2008 crisis, when everyone was losing their jobs and funding was disappearing. And I think it's a time, you know, it may not be an active selling time, but that doesn't mean that there's not a lot we can be doing, both on the sort of pivot of strategy and on the giving and engaging with our buyers or customers.
I think that's so powerful. I know somebody at home needed to hear that today, that this is an opportunity to really reimagine and be disruptive. So thank you for saying that. You know, ideas can really come out of that pressure, right? Like when we think about how a diamond is created.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, yes, thank you. I know somebody, oof, you know, that feeling where you're just going, that just went through my body, a little ripple. Thank you for that. Jennifer, what has there been, or what has been your sort of, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but has there been a messaging that you've been telling yourself every day as you get up and go back into the fires, if you will, or have you been writing in a journal? What are you using to keep yourself whole through this time?
I do some journaling, absolutely. I think it's also really important. I come home and I kind of download each day with my husband, who is also an essential worker, and we share our fears and we share what we're hearing. But as far as in the workplace, I have always kind of had the philosophy that you lead from behind and you really let your people shine. And right now, no one has a title. No one has a specific role. We are all very important. The events lead is no longer the events lead. She's working in the tasting room. We're all doing whatever we need to do. And we've gotten really creative. Just like Joanne was saying, you never know what you have in you until you're in a situation where you have to use it. And we've gone out into our communities and We have given sanitizer to businesses that are delivering, that are doing pickup. And not only is that helping them out, but there again, it's planting a seed that maybe when they reopen, they might want to bring this into their bar assortment. So it's staying grounded, it's staying focused, it's letting my people's creativity and innovation absolutely shine. They have come up with some amazing ideas for new business ideas and leads. So it's exactly right. We're doing what we need to do. And it's things we didn't think about 6 months ago, but now we're thinking about those things, and it's making all the difference for us. And not only that, but I'm seeing leaders emerge in my tasting rooms, which is fantastic, because I had to let go of all my leads. I had to let go of my managers, and those new leaders are making themselves known. They are emerging, and they now have this freedom in the room to do that. And so it's so inspiring on so many levels, that's kind of keeping me going, you know? So like I said, it's kind of buried a lot of that fear because I don't have time for it right now. You know, I've got to be strong for my people. I have to be strong for my family, and that's what I'm focused on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Priyanka, so, you know, we went into this episode today being potentially wary about selling during the pandemic, still putting our focus and our lens on our company through this time. For that leader who's still having some reservations about keeping their attention on their company and still maybe having some guilt about wanting to see their way through this successfully, what do you want to say?
I think I'm just going to go back to rehashing some of that value propositions. Like, what is it that you're bringing to the table? Yes, it's a hand sanitizer. So what does it do? How does it do? It's saving people's lives right now. That's your kind of, and it can go further, but that's kind of your like the result of your why circle methodology, or the fishbone analysis methodology, right? So, and that will actually help, because we all started this business because we want to sell our product. And, you know, we want to, and that's kind of what is visible. We want to be able to sell, we want to be able to add value. But the moment we kind of change it from saying we are selling, we are adding value, and going back to making those relationships and keeping them, like planting that seed, all of that will change the mind shift to lay the ground for when people are ready. I also wanted to use kind of a little segue into other things that business owners or you know, people who are trying to feel good about, and we should, like to Joanne's point before, we should always feel good about selling our product, because it's that mind shift change of not selling, but understanding like what their needs are. That need may not be right now, but maybe later. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about, and my work is also more like with Shift, I also dive a lot into how we can make the business processes kind of more efficient for running a business that is that has low waste, right? So this might also be a time to think about that innovation. And sometimes that innovation can happen just like, oh, I woke up and I have this brilliant idea. That may not be always true. Sometimes we have to go through a process of innovating. And I want to pull us all back into that process and say, innovation is kind of like the third step in a process of what it starts with is documentation. And what I mean by that is, sometimes when we are just in a hamster wheel going through like all the things that the business does, we don't have time to list down like how it is working, think of it like a big car engine. There are like so many moving parts inside, the gears and everything. Once we have a knowledge of how that happens, and that's kind of the first, it's it's an oversimplified term to say, and it could be as simple as just writing down how this happens. And then automation, this might be a great time to think about, oh, these 5 things here, and this is kind of, I'm diving into very tactical, right? So these 5 steps here, oh, we can kind of automate these. Oh, we can automate these. And once we go through that exercise, that's when innovation can come to us. I mean, it doesn't always need to be, it came to me in a dream.
Yes.
We can also practice innovation.
That's very true of what we hear is happening with Jennifer and all of these leaders all of a sudden stepping up and seeing ways to improve processes, to perhaps eliminate some churn within the company. And it's coming out naturally on the floor by allowing more leaders to put their hands up. And even in the instance of the event manager now on the floor, bringing that different thinking to that role, I'm sure that there is new innovation that's developing out of that. That's beautiful. Such a great reminder that now is a great opportunity to look at how do we improve systems? Where can I save money? And etc. Joanne, you and Priyanka, when speaking about shift strategy, talk about modern sales. And I don't know if it's the same for you, Jennifer, and for everybody out there listening, but when I hear the two of you speak about sales, it seems like something that I want to do all day. I want to listen to stories. I want to share stories. I want to engage with people's problems and look for ways to try to support them. Is that what you mean by modern sales? And how do we start in this this moment, this great pause, if you will, to start bringing modern sales into our company?
That's a great question. And just a quick little segue. It's a big question. It's going to be hard to answer in, without, in the time that we have. And I kind of, Priyanka and I sort of anticipated that this is a big topic. So I just wanted to mention that we are going to offer a workshop, a 2-hour workshop on Wednesday, June 3rd for this audience. We'll show you the link in the Facebook Live, I think. But the promo code for this audience to zero out the cost and come and just join us as our guest is just capital GSBA. And it's going to be an online thing, but so we'll get like more into this specifically in that time, and we'll have a chance to kind of workshop this with you. But pulling back out to answer your question, there's a couple of things that I think really are guiding principles of modern sales. And one is really putting, the customer at the center, having this customer-centric model. And that's a buzzword these days. And so I think unpacking or unspooling a little bit what that truly means beyond the buzz. It truly means, here's an example. A lot of companies or businesses talk about themselves in the value proposition or in their mission statement or in how they approach their company. So if I say, I am ABC Accounting, I'm Seattle's best accounting firm, I've won Seattle Met's top places to work or top businesses for 5 years running, we are a panel of experts, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's not all that interesting. But if I say, you are a busy business owner and entrepreneur, you've got so much going on, especially during this time you're dealing with, not only business stress, but life stress. This is one thing, you want to rest assured that this is being taken care of in a way that's efficient, that matches your business and by people you trust. Like if I hold that up to you, those two statements, one of them is going to reflect me. You're not going to see yourself in that. And the other, hopefully, if I do it right, you're going to say like, yeah, I am that entrepreneur and this is a concern of mine. And yeah, I don't love doing spreadsheet QuickBooks. And yes, that like, I see myself in that. And that's what I mean by a customer-centric approach, making it about them in the language, that you use. I think something else that's important to understand these days is so much of like what you've learned about sales, or you've gone to like a workshop here or there. I really reject all of that. And one of those is like, you've got to uncover their pain. Like if you can't make them feel the pain, you're never going to sell to them. And, you know, I think some products and some services are out there for joy and for pleasure and for innovation's sake. You know, one of our sort of business associates, or a peer of ours in the business community, has a company called Circle Phone, and she is making cell phones round. Now, that is not because the average consumer is walking around being like, oh my God, like this is so painful. My phone is a rectangle and I just can't handle it. No, like most people probably haven't even thought outside the box that this could be anything other than a rectangle. So her whole value prop is not on digging into that deep childhood pain or whatever it is, you know. I mean, it's purely about joy and excitement and fun and innovation. So don't get sucked into that, like that it has to be about, you know. I do think, that being said, if it doesn't, you know, if it's a business sale, it should tie to a need. It should directly support an organizational goal. Most businesses won't spend frivolously, you know, in the same way that a consumer will. But, you know, just kind of understanding that there are different motivating factors, I think. So those are a few of the things I would say are about, you know, modern sales. And I touched on some of them before, just saying, give your buyers credit. You know, if they tell you like now's not the right time, that doesn't mean you should come back and like hammer it over the head. It's like, respect that. They're probably not your customer. There's, you know, I think here's one thing I'll leave you with, and this is a particularly challenging right now. As much as you can, believing in this mindset of abundance, there is a big world out there. There are a lot of buyers or customers. You have a lot of competitors, but like there's enough to go around, sort of thing. If you operate from that mindset, you're going to find yourself interacting on a more on a level that resonates more, I think, than if you're like, oh my God, scarcity, we're in this pandemic, I've got to, like, if they come into my store and they don't leave with this bottle from us, we're doomed. You know, that kind of thinking is not going to help anybody. So it might feel like there's scarcity, but I think trying to really tap into the opposite.
That's great. That's great. And I think that is a wonderful reminder for all of us who are watching at home, watching on Facebook, to tap into those feelings of fear, concern, frustration, your desire to control, and right now not knowing what the future looks like, and therefore that desire being not available to you. You can see it through. And I hope that today's episode, by having Jennifer here to talk about how they've been able to shift, and having Priyanka and Joanne here from Shift Strategy, is helping you to realize that you do have a control in a sense, and that is how you respond, how you navigate this time. And we here at the GSBA are here to support you through this. I'm, of course, always here to support you. Just drop me a line. And thank you all for joining us on Keeping It Real with the GSBA and Lindsay T.H. Jackson. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you.
Everybody get home.
Thank
See
you.
you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.